Welcome to Paul Davis Uncanceled. We had this awesome intro, all prepared for us. It was incredible. It's actually way over the top. I'm still not sure what I think about it, but this is our third episode. We're still having technical difficulties, so we couldn't figure out how to get it to play. So anyway, I spent the weekend at the Texas GOP convention in Houston, and man, speaking of being fired up, because I'm a fired up Texas lawyer. If 10,000 patriots standing up and booing that globalist rhino, Senator John Cornyn, for supporting red flag laws and sending $40 billion to Ukraine does not get your blood pumping, we might have to confiscate your Patriot card. Of course, that's after John Cornyn is done confiscating guns from veterans. I don't know if y'all realize this, but these red flag laws that Cornyn is supporting, that's what got him booed. And it's just particularly egregious with regard to military veterans. Now, I haven't had a chance to read this bill for myself, but according to my friend Sarah Fields with Texas Freedom Coalition, who served this country in Army in Afghanistan, if you're a veteran and you go to see a therapist to get treatment for something like PTSD or other mental health issues, the therapist could red flag you, and then the government comes to take your guns away. So what's the effect of this law? You're basically telling veterans, yeah, we're real sorry we sent you to fight an endless war in Afghanistan so that Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and the rest of the military industrial complex can rake in billions for their investors and in kickbacks for the corrupt politicians. But if you want to go get help for your PTSD because you had to watch your buddy die in an IED explosion, then we're going to take your Second Amendment rights away. I mean, does that sound like a law that's good for this country? Hey, I mean, John Cornyn, what was your family's cut from the war in Afghanistan? What did you get in exchange for sending our sons and daughters to get blown to pieces by the Taliban while you sip whiskey and smoke cigars with your establishment buddies at the golf club? It must have been a long 4 years when Trump was in office and you couldn't grift off the dead bodies of Americans with another war. And so now what? John, you're going to pretend you're confiscating firearms from veterans who honorably serve this country so we can keep kids from being shot in school? Is that really the solution? You're a liar and a fraud. John Cornyn, you're a traitor to this country. And if you and your fellow bottom-feeding swamp creatures in DC really want to protect kids in school, why don't you take the $40 billion you sent to defend the border of Ukraine, which is apparently not even being used for that purpose, and use it to fund armed security for our public schools? I mean, if you're going to bankrupt this country with outrageous deficit spending, then at least use it to benefit our own country. How about that? Maybe protect our border. How about that? Our border instead of Ukraine's border. But, we know what's going on here. You voted for that bill because you're getting something out of it. That's the only explanation, because your constituents obviously don't want this, which is why you're getting booed off the stage at the Texas GOP convention. So I'm going to roll if you haven't seen this is just beautiful. I'm going to roll the footage real quick of John Cornyn getting booed off the stage this weekend at the Republican convention. So that was just all kinds of awesome. That just puts me in a good mood because he deserves to get booed. And, I had to cut down that clip because he got booed for probably 2 minutes straight before he even started talking. And then it continued throughout his entire speech. And I mean, it's hard to know whether he just went through his whole speech just as I don't care what you think about me, or I don't know what was on his mind, but it was kind of awkward all the through the speech, but it just made me really happy. And that wasn't actually the only instance of globalist rhinos getting an earful from the conservative grassroots this weekend. Comedian Alex Stein, who is a national treasure, or quickly becoming one, let Ted Cruz and Dan Crenshaw have it as well. And if you hadn't seen these videos yet, they are well worth watching. So let's roll that Alex Stein video heckling Ted Cruz for.
If you care about America, why do you do that to your constituents when they're freezing cold?
You know, I'm sure you think you're really smart.
Oh,
really
I am
bright.
smart. Yeah, because you're a globalist. You do more for Ukraine than you do for America. You know that. Remember how Trump made fun of your wife, and then you go become best friends with Trump? I know, but why do you do that? You go become best friends with Trump after he makes fun of you and your wife. Why do you do that?
I understand you don't want to defend
you're
Texas,
a coward.
and you don't want
No,
to.
see, I do love America. See, you don't. You care more about the border between Ukraine and Russia than you care about the border between Texas and Mexico. Why is that? Why do you care about that? I know, but why are you a globalist? You're a globalist, bud. You know it, Ted. Hey, Teddy, you're a globalist. You're a globalist, Ted. You know that, bud. And that's why you're a coward and a liar. And you know that, and I know that. And that's why you're afraid to stand up for it. When people were freezing and dying, you were in Cancun, Mexico. You remember that? You remember when you're at the all-inclusive buffet while people were freezing? No, but do you remember that, Ted, when everybody was freezing? Remember that, when people were dying? What were you doing? Yeah. I passed McKinney. Hey, I passed McKinney. Look at I passed McKinney right here. You're a rhino. You're a globalist. You're a globalist rhino. You're a globalist rhino. Kid, you're a globalist rhino. I passed McKinney.
Oh man, gotta love Alex Stein. You know, I mean, I don't really blame Ted Cruz for enjoying his beach vacation that was already planned when the winter storm hit. I mean, what's he supposed to do? He's a U.S. senator. He's, you know, it's not like him coming back to Texas is going to fix anything. He's going to help anything. I mean, you know, what's he going to do? Hug a few victims, kiss a few babies. I don't know about you, but I don't want a hug from Ted Cruz. No thanks. Still, pretty funny line there about the buffet while everybody was freezing. In any case, this all leads to what we're going to talk about tonight with my guest, Kyle Sims, and that is the political corruption that is going on right here in McKinney, Texas. You don't have to go to D.C. to find, to find financial corruption, to find corrupt politicians. They are actually right here in our backyard here in McKinney, Texas. And the last two episodes, we talked about the existence of pornographic and sexually explicit books available in the McKinney ISD school libraries and how they've taught kindergartners all the different sexual positions in class, because, you know, that's what kindergartners need to learn. They don't need to learn about shapes and colors. You know, they really need to learn about how to go from doggy style to the lotus position. That's apparently a priority in the McKinney school district. So tonight we're going to continue to expose McKinney ISD by talking about some, let's say, questionable items regarding construction contracts. I really don't know much about this topic myself. I haven't delved into it, which is why I brought Kyle on, and I'm very interested to hear what he has to say. I used to be, you know, way more fascinated with national politics until I realized that we have the exact same issues right here in our own backyard on a local level. And, you know, local politics is really what affects your life the most, you know, and people don't pay attention. And that's why all these school boards got taken over by leftists, by establishment Republicans, by just corrupt politicians who want to pollute our kids' minds, because none of us were paying attention to local politics, and the Democrats came in, the radical leftists came in and took over all these school board seats. So, you know, we're gonna delve into what's going on with the construction contracts, because I understand there's some shady things. First, just a very brief plug for our partners at My Patriot Supply. Not sure if y'all have noticed this, but there are an alarming number of food processing plants that have been burning all over the country. And then, you know, thousands of cattle just randomly dropped dead in Kansas from a heat wave. Yeah, I'm sure every single cow that was just standing in place all just died at the same time from a heat wave. That seems like a rational explanation. But, you know, the other problem is that diesel prices in this country are outrageous. And I just learned this recently. Diesel is so high in price that truckers are actually canceling their contracts to go pick up and deliver food from the farms in America. And so this is leading to a pretty severe crisis. We're still eating the crops, you know, the food that was produced in the last crop cycle, but, you know, the next cycle, it's just not going to be there. So if you want to prepare, you can actually, I don't have a fancy link, but you can go to any of my social media pages, go to my Linktree link, and then it's right up at the top there, My Patriot Supply, and you can order some emergency food for you and your family. So without further ado, I want to welcome Kyle Sims to the show. So welcome, Kyle. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you coming on. So, tell the audience just a little about who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Well, my career started back in the 80s. I was a construction manager for 3 different districts, and I retired from Frisco back in 2016. I had a total of 32 years overseeing new schools being built and renovations being done. And I actually worked for the school districts. So I was a liaison between the districts, the contractors, architects, the subs. I was responsible for pay-apps, contracts. And after I retired, I got real heavy into politics. So kind of changed my roles a little bit, but I'm still looking out for Texas.
That's so great. So, so you actually know something about this specific topic because of your experience. This isn't just something you've done investigating. What got you into politics?
You know what got I've been in it for a while, but what really got me involved was when Shelley Luther got arrested for opening her salon in Dallas during COVID, and got to be real good friends with Shelley and her husband Tim, and that's what really got me fired up. I was tired of the tyranny and the blatant disrespect for human rights that we all have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that's exactly why they got involved. They, didn't really pay attention to politics. It's like nobody really pays attention to politics unless you're just a nerd like me who's been, following it from the time I was a kid. I think I used to actually read the I used to read the encyclopedia about how government works and how bills are passed. I was that kid, but I never really got involved into politics until recently because of all the horrible things that were going on. So I know that's a lot of people's story. You can sit on the sidelines until it starts directly affecting your life. So very much appreciate it. Yeah. And if you're watching and don't know who Shelley Luther is, look her up. She's pretty fantastic. A lady that refused to close her hair salon and was willing to go to jail rather than bow down to our tyrannical governor who imposed that on us. So, wow, that's great. I love that. So, so tell us, I was reading some of the topics you listed here. Something about bids not being awarded for certain projects. So, tell me about that. What's going on here with McKinney ISD?
Well, real quick, anything in Texas over $50,000, you're supposed to have at least 3 bids for. So what McKinney's doing is in some instances, they're getting 1 bid for a big project, and they're not making that information available to the public, even through FOIAs. They're just basically sending emails out saying we bid it. Mm-hmm. But when you do FOIA requests and you get that information back, they pick their favorite contractor because they've done work in the district for years. So how much money is actually under the table for this contractor and what favors are done for this contractor to get that project? I can tell you in Frisco and Plano, I dealt with contracts that were hundreds of millions of dollars. A new high school when I left was over $100 million.
What's the risk of, kind of break it down for our audience of what's bad about that process that they're following? What can happen?
Well, the bad thing is there's no competition. So if you're awarding every project to the same contractor, obviously they have an incentive to do that. But what does it do for the other contractors who are not getting the opportunity to even bid on a project because they're not in with McKinney ISD or the board members? Mm-hmm. So that's the downfall, that there's not competition and therefore there's not oversight of our tax dollars.
Yeah. So basically, in other words, they just kind of pick a contractor, and is there any limit as to, well, without the competition, then they just decide what to pay them. There's no efficiency. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there's been a lot of FOIAs that have been submitted for different financials, even down to the point of invoices that has not been provided to us. And that's the whole problem. If you've got a contract for, say, $500,000 and you ask for the backup of that contract, they're not providing that information. And that's all public information. I had to deal with FOIAs when I was in Plano and Frisco as well. And sometimes it took, 10 or 12 days to get that documentation together.
Mm-hmm.
But as a taxpayer, we have a right to know what our schools and our renovations are costing us, and they shouldn't be hiding that information.
So there's no way to find out what these contractors are actually getting paid for these construction contracts and what the money's actually going toward?
Not unless the district provides that information, because any job that they do should have a written contract with terms. And what we're finding is that the information I've gathered with other people is that they're not providing that information. So we know they're hiding something. We don't know how much it is. And that's why we're starting to bring the hammer down on this. One example is they had a HVAC renovation at 2 separate schools. The price difference in between those 2 renovations was $400,000. They issued a contract to a contractor that charged the same amount of money to do both projects, although one of them was $400,000 more in scope. That just doesn't add up. I mean, for $400,000 more and you get the same amount of money, that tells me that you're getting the job just because you're their favorite contractor. It's not because of efficiency or saving money. It's because you're their favorite contractor. And I might add that job in particular only had 1 bid that they submitted back in the FOIA request. It didn't have 3 that was required by state law.
So, okay, so they're actually required by law to at least look at 3 bids, and they're not doing that?
If it's over $50,000, they're required by state law to get 3 bids.
Okay.
No matter what it is.
And what happens when you point, like, do people point this out to the school board?
Well, basically what they've submitted back to us is they've submitted back emails with exactly what they've done, not thinking that anybody's going to look any deeper into this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they're falling short, because we are looking deeper into it. I'm not sure what it's going to take to get that information. I don't think they have the information is a problem.
Okay. Oh, so what are the consequences if you don't have that information and you don't get the 3 bids? Do you know?
Well, I know it's a very serious offense. I don't know what they was classified as. I would think it would be a felony, but basically you're playing with taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really sad that a district that is this large, and it's going to be the next Frisco, we all know that. It's very sad that right now that we're at this level that we can't get information from the district.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all kind of examples, and what they're doing on some of these projects is they're using a purchase order way of doing business. There's 2 typical ways that you take bids in the state of Texas for schools. One's called a competitive seal proposal, which is a sealed in an envelope. They're all turned in on the same day at a certain time, and if that bid is not received by that time, your bid is void. The other one is what they call a construction manager at risk, to where they give you a lump sum bid. All those bids are read in and open, and these contractors usually have a percentage built into there for their profit. Most contractors do like a 1.5% up to a 4 or 5%. Well, what people don't know is there's certain things in those CM at risk project that's not supposed to be charged, like insurance, vehicles, gas for the company vehicles. But we have no way of knowing that because we're not being provided that information.
So in theory, I mean, could the board could just decide what they want to pay the contractor, and the contractor could really, I mean, use that money for anything, and we wouldn't know. I mean, they could, I don't know, use it to just pay exorbitant salaries to the project managers and the owners of the company. I mean, is that the risk here, that people are getting rich off of these contracts, off of our taxpayer dollars?
That is exactly what I'm saying, because I know when I was in Frisco, we had a department of 13 guys. And those 13 guys' duties was to oversee every aspect of those projects. I was over all of them. So it was my duty to do the pay apps, do the contracts, do the safety. I mean, just on and on and on. The issue with McKinney is they don't have a real construction department. So this is overseen by the financial people and the board that probably have no construction experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they're paying. And there's lies the issue that we're not having transparency by the board.
Yeah, one thing I'm curious about, I keep hearing about, the millions upon, I can't remember how many millions of dollars they spent on the stadium.
70 million.
$70 million on the stadium. Were you involved at that point? Were you looking at all of that when the stadium was being built?
Well, I wasn't as deep as I am now, but I can tell you that the contractor that did that stadium had issues on multiple projects in Frisco, in Prosper, in McKinney, and he still got the job. And yet they had to go in and redo all the concrete. And although the taxpayers were told that that money was picked up by the contractor, if those documents are not provided on what that remedial cost was, how do we know?
Yeah.
How do we know that the district didn't pay again for that work? And I guarantee you they did.
What kind of issues did that contractor have with the other school districts, if you know?
Before the stadium even opened, the concrete on the second level started cracking tremendously. So basically they had to go in and do a lot of remedial work to the concrete on the second level of that stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that anybody's got a straight answer on what they paid for that, if anything. Wow. And it's very possible the contractor ate it, but I can tell you, being in that world for over 32 years, that's very highly unlikely. It was probably a change order.
Yeah, no, I actually used to practice construction law for about a year or so. I didn't like it, but I could see. I mean, it seems to me that, like, let's compare it to the situation going on in Washington with, they're sending $40 billion to Ukraine. That bill comes up, and I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Rand Paul said, hey, why don't we, if we're going to send $40 billion to a foreign country, why don't we at least appoint, put a provision in there that the inspector general or whoever reviews where this money is going, what it's for, reviews all the line items, so we actually know where this money is going. Is that, and it sounds like that's kind of the same thing here. They just, we're just going to appropriate $70 million for the stadium, and we're not going to consider any other contractors. We just give it to you, and then we're not even going to put out a line item budget for everybody to see. So we have no way of knowing who's getting this money, what it's going to, and it's our money. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, Paul. And the other thing is, when I was in Frisco and Plano, we had aerial photos of all the projects once a month. We gave an update on where those projects were, what the status was. You don't see any of that on McKinney ISD's website. Mm-hmm. There's no oversight of these projects to the extent that it needs to be. And that's the concerning part, that how much money are we really spending for projects in McKinney ISD? Because when a 4-year request is submitted and they send you back an email that says, oh no, we got that covered, but there's no specific details in there as far as monies, we don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. We don't have a clue what they're doing.
And this is really just par for the course for the McKinney School Board, from what I can tell. And, I think, it's very disturbing to me. I just recently got involved in this, as you know. I'd literally never been to a school board meeting in my life before April, and it was one of the most traumatic experiences I think I've had in a while. And mind you, I was at January 6th, but just watching elected officials throw people out of meetings for asking legitimate questions and making legitimate statements that just because they disagreed with them. There is no transparency on this school board. I have called this school board out several times for going into closed session. They go into closed session. They cite all these different statutes, but there's really only one that they're allowed to consult with their attorney on. And they can only do that for the purpose of getting legal advice. They can't deliberate about anything. They can't discuss the facts of a situation. There's no substantive debate allowed. But you see them every week, every month. They go into closed session, and we have no idea what they're talking about. And and they don't. I don't think they keep records. And that's actually, that's a Class C misdemeanor. Like, it's actually a crime to do that. So, have you observed them doing this with regard to the construction contracts, kind of just meeting behind closed doors?
Well,
What have you observed?
Well, I've observed that, but I do know that you hear very little discussion in open forum about any construction projects.
Yeah.
They might say who they awarded it to, and they might give you the amount if you're lucky, but that's all they're discussing. And I was in a meeting with Chad Green about a year ago. He was able to, when he got elected, he was able to bring one guest to a meeting with the board. And there were some other people in there. And I asked a very specific question about construction. And the head guy over finance basically gave me a bull crap answer to where I knew the answer before I asked him. And he couldn't answer my question. And right then I knew there was something fishy going on with McKinney, because when you start asking questions, they get real nervous and they start backpedaling. And that's what they did in this meeting. I was able to ask another question, got the same response. So I know they're hiding something. We gotta put this together as a team and figure out what all they're hiding.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've been trying to get answers from the board's attorney, Mari McGowan. I don't mind calling her out on this podcast, because after the last meeting, they go into closed session under the attorney consultation, but they also went into closed session under a separate provision, which was to discuss the discipline of Chad Green over nothing, as we've discussed on this podcast previously. It's a complete witch hunt, which is, again, it's like McKinney ISD and so many municipal boards like this. It's like a microcosm of DC. It's a witch hunt. They conducted a witch hunt into Chad Green, similar to the Russia collusion witch hunt into Trump, just because they don't like Chad Green. They don't like that he's calling them out. And so, I pointed out, hey, you can go back to consult with your attorney, but if you are discussing at all the discipline and censorship or censoring of Chad Green, that's illegal. And they admitted to doing that on the agenda, that they had that as an agenda item. So I emailed the attorney the next day and I said, what legal authority are you relying on to do this? And I got crickets. I mean, I said, I'm at a loss, because I called the Attorney General's office. And by the way, the audience should know, if you ever have a question about open government, open records, you can call the hotline at the Attorney General's office. I think it's, I have the number memorized now. Actually, it's 512-478-OPEN. And you can actually talk to an attorney at the AG's office. And I did that. I've done it twice. And, he was at a loss too. So I emailed their attorney. I say, I talked to the AG's office. They can't give me a reason why you could legally do this. And her only response was, well, who'd you talk to? No, I still don't have any authority as to, why they're doing this. So they just do whatever they want, it seems.
Well, and I have some certain statutes for you that we think they have broken per the state law. I'll get those to you. But I have all this documented, and we have clearly lined out to them the statutes of which they have to provide this information, and they still haven't provided it. So they're doing the same with us as they are you. They're stonewalling. I think they're hoping that we will go away, but we're not going away. We're just getting started.
I agree. I mean, I may have missed the email, so I don't want to say anything inaccurate, but I told the board's attorney, I need to hear back by today what your authority is that you're going into deliberations, that it looks like, behind closed doors, to discuss things you're not allowed to discuss behind closed doors. And I haven't seen it. I still don't think I have any authority on that from her. So looks like we will be filing a lawsuit under the Open Meetings Act. And I would love to see what you have as far as what you found as far as the construction contracts, because that sounds like something, another lawsuit. I keep saying, I'm like, you know what? We might just file a lawsuit every single month against the school board until they start complying with the law, because they obviously don't seem to care what the law is.
Well, here's the other scary part. I'm getting calls from people down close to Houston, out west, out east. And this is a typical pattern of a Democrat-led school board that has been getting away with this for who knows how long. And now that we're standing up across the state and we're making some noise, I don't think they know what to do with themselves. I really don't.
I agree. I do.
But I'm getting calls from Granbury, from Round Rock, from Houston area, from Nacogdoches. Everybody's calling me saying, what can we do? Because number one, we can't get answers on projects. Number two, they're kicking us out of school board meetings for speaking up against pornography.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they're completely out of control. My understanding is the Attorney General's office is actually interested in investigating some of this. So the more we can get together to present to them, we may actually get some action from our Attorney General. And thank God Ken Paxton won the Republican nomination, because George P. Not the Bush family is not exactly known for being transparent and conducting open government.
No, they're not. And I've talked to a lot of people behind the scenes, and there's a lot of people doing work that we don't know about. But it's absolutely imperative that we keep the pressure up. We keep fighting this battle. And if they think they're going to cancel me, they got another thing coming, because I'm retired, and they're not going to cancel me, and I'm going to fight for my grandkids.
Heck yeah, I'm right there with you, brother. I mean, Democrats are still trying to get me disbarred for filing an election integrity lawsuit. How dare I try to restore integrity to our elections?
Absolutely.
Apparently, that's destroying democracy. If you file a lawsuit asking for election integrity.
Well, it's time we take this state back, and we're not asking for anything more than to provide the information that you're supposed to provide us by the state law, and maybe everything's good. But until we see that, we don't think it's good. And there's got to be a reason they're not providing the information that's been requested for them.
Yeah, I know. And what the thing is, it's like if nothing underhanded is going on, if nothing corrupt is going on, why are we hiding it? Why can't we see these contracts? Why can't we see the budget and where the money's going? That doesn't seem to be too much to ask, because it's at the end of the day, it's our money, it's like the government forces us to give it to them, and then there's no accountability, there's no transparency, and that's just not right.
Well, with our superintendent making $365,000 a year, that's $1,000 a day. I think they have some documents that they need to give us. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm very curious to see, as far as documents. I want to see whether they're required under law to keep certified agendas or recordings of these closed sessions. And if you don't keep that is a crime. I mean, it's a Class C misdemeanor.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another problem. I think that's another problem. Like, I'm new to the Open Meetings Act, so I'm learning, because I'm a civil rights attorney. I mean, traditionally I'm an employment law attorney, but I'm learning all this now about open government. And there's some problems with this law. It's like you don't record the meeting like you're supposed to. You don't document it, and it's only a Class C misdemeanor. Like, it seems like there needs to be harsher penalties about this, don't you think?
Well, there does, and I think the whole issue, Paul, is Texans. I'm a native Texan. Texans have been complacent way too long, and what we did is we gave them too much rope to take out there and go for miles and miles and miles. And now we're all waking up, and they're saying, well, we haven't had to do that for years. Why are we going to do it now?
Exactly.
And I think that's the attitude they have. They really just don't care. They want us to fight tooth and nail as hard as we can fight and hope we go away. But like I said earlier, we're not going away. Yeah. We're just getting wound up.
I agree. I mean, if this weekend's Republican convention didn't send that message, I don't know what will. I mean, how excited were you that we passed all these, just to change topics just briefly, and then we'll come back and kind of wrap up on the construction stuff. But how excited were you about some of these provisions we passed? Like, what are your thoughts on what we did this weekend?
I'm very happy. I thought we had a very good convention. It was definitely better than the last one we had. A lot of good patriots there. A lot of people are really starting to pay attention. They're getting fed up. They're starting to understand, what provisions and what platform we need. And that's a good thing, because people need to wake up and realize that this government is overshadowing us and trying to take our lives over by every aspect we've got. and we have to put our foot down and say enough is enough. I preach every single day about holding our legislators accountable. I don't care if they're a friend or not. If they're not doing their job, they need to get out of the way. And I think it was a very good sign this weekend. We talked to a lot of people, hundreds of people down there. Some we knew, some we didn't, but we make connections all over the state. We exposed the corruption and the pornography, what's going on in the schools. And I think it's a good thing. I think we're making headway.
Absolutely. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm getting a buzz on my computer for some reason. I think it's getting into the sound feed, so I'm going to try to put some headphones on. But while I'm untangling my Apple, we're really high tech on this podcast. We're very well funded, so we have all the best equipment, including the old school Apple headphones. So
absolutely.
Yeah, but what are some of the planks, the platform planks we passed this weekend or adopted that most excited you?
I really want to see the big things I want to see happen is I want to see the taxpayer funded lobbying go. Obviously, I want to see abortion go. The gender modification needs to go. And we need to close our freaking border. Yeah,
absolutely.
I've been to the border 5 times in the last year, and it's really a shame what's going on the border. Prayers for everybody in Uvalde. But I'm going to be attending a lot of meetings here in the next few weeks with a lot of key people, and it's not enough to just get on the platform. What we need to do now is we need to start hitting our legislators hard before November, before they get back in session. We've got to keep the pressure on them, Paul. We've got to keep that pressure on them because we don't need money to buy somebody out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, I was just so excited that, and I know it's just our policy, our party platform. It's not a law or anything like that. It doesn't have the force of law, but it was very encouraging to me that we adopted things like state sovereignty, like Texas reserves the right to secede from the union if the federal government continues its overreach.
Absolutely.
And to be honest with you, like I don't know, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but with how corrupt our federal government has become, with all these kickbacks that the politicians are getting, and just corruption at all the highest levels, 10% for the big guy, which I'm sure most of our audience has heard about, from the Hunter Biden laptop from hell. It's hard for me to see any other way to unwind just how or to defeat the monster that our government has become, our federal government has become, other than something like a Texit, and a lot of people, I've been reading, people hear Texit, Texas exiting the union. That's crazy. That's only insane people believe that. And it's been really, looked down upon. But if you really look into the details of it, like I've been reading Daniel Miller's book, Texit, and it's really not all that impractical. I mean, the British did it with Brexit. There was no war, we could, I don't think the United States government has the stomach to try to invade Texas if we, if we passed a resolution to secede from the union. I mean, that just wouldn't go well. It wouldn't be good for anybody. So I think it's much more likely they would try to negotiate treaties and this would actually be a peaceful transition. But I'm starting to think, I don't really see any other way to curb the power of the federal government. I mean, do you?
No, I don't. And I had a long talk with Daniel at the convention. I talked to him for probably an hour. And I've seen Daniel many times. But, I tell people that, do I want to save the United States like it is? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But right now, the way things are going, I don't know if that's going to happen. It may be very well that we have to Texas. And if we do, I know there's enough Texans that I know out there that's going to stand up and fight for what we have and fight for our sovereignty.
Absolutely. And I mean, the sentiment, I think people are so fed up. I mean, I keep hearing, I'm not saying this just to make this clear, but, I see all the time, people are just like, how much more are we going to take? When are we going to, be in the streets, with our guns? I mean, and nobody really wants that. I mean, that would be a horrible situation, but that's the sentiment. And it occurred to me when I was reading his book, I was just like, that we don't have to do that. We don't have to have a violent revolution. Like if states like Texas were to stand up and say enough is enough, federal government, this is not what we signed up for when we joined the union. I think other states would follow, and maybe finally, I don't know how that would work out, but maybe finally we keep the federal government in check and out of our business.
I know there's a lot of people in the state that's high up that's talked to other states, and I feel confident that we'd have some neighboring states join us for that reason. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's going to be a revolution against the people in Texas.
Right.
I think once people see that we've got the gall to stand up, I think more would stand with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Something. How long have you been going to these McKinney school board meetings?
On and off, last 4 years.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, because like I said, I just came. I'm new. I'm the newcomer here, and it's just shocking if you're not used to it. But have you noticed that the public outcry and just the opposition, has it become more intense recently, or has it kind of been this level since you started attending?
No, I would say the city council meetings have been unhinged for years. I go to those also.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's a totally different ballgame. The school board meetings, I would say after COVID kind of got unhinged because, kids have been locked up for basically 2 years. And COVID was a good thing in the aspect that it woke parents up to let them see what's really going on in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's when a lot of people that had awakened that had not been awake before.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think
if you've never been to a city council meeting, you should treat yourself and go.
Oh yeah, no, I really do want to go. I mean, and I think it's important for just anybody listening to this podcast. It's hard to know it's hard to understand. I think how bad and just what a cesspool local government is until you start going to some of these meetings. I'd heard about it, but it's one thing to hear about it. It's another to see it in real time and just realize these people don't care about you. They don't care about us. They care about their own power. And that's really it. They want to stay in power. They're not there serving the people. They're there to get power and keep it. Don't you think?
They are. And, tomorrow night in the council meeting, our mayor's issuing a proclamation for Pride Month. And I tell people the Pride Month is one thing, but here's what it does. When we see 8, 9-year-olds going into bars for a gay pride event, that's where the indoctrination starts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm protecting my grandkids and other kids that I know. And why do we need a Pride Month to celebrate who you are? Why do we need that?
It is really beyond me. I have nothing against the gay community. I have several friends that are gay. I mean, it's not. It's just why do we need a month? Why are we exalting this? Do we have heterosexual month? I don't know. It seems like that is our number one national priority right now. If you look at the Biden administration, it's like we're facing real threats. We've never before faced two superpowers teaming up against us. We got China and Russia basically in cahoots now, scheming against us. And instead of trying to develop our hypersonic missile technology and strengthening our missile defense systems, we're training all of our military on, LGBTQ awareness. I don't know how, or just that's the next priority. I mean, it's crazy. And you wonder why like Putin and Xi are licking their chops when that's our priority. I mean, this is just crazy.
Well, and I will say this, as well as I do, Mayor Fuller's had his nose in the school board meetings. And if people don't think the influence is between the city and the district, they got another thing coming. That influence is very heavy.
What do you think's going on there? Like, why do you think Mayor Fuller is so invested in what's going on with the school boards?
Fuller's got higher aspirations. He's not going to go away when his term's up next year. Mm-hmm. He's going to run for something else. He's got a fist on McKinney and he's got a fist on North Carolina County, and he wants to keep that fist where it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, I call him a dictator. He's a dictator. I mean, he really is. He's a dictator.
So what, like, Expound on that a little bit. Like, what aspects of his tenure kind of trend towards being a dictator, in your opinion?
Well, he doesn't want the council members talking to each other anywhere outside of council chambers. He fought to have our statue taken down. He also campaigned for Lashady and Shimwell to be on that council, and then when he couldn't control him, he wanted them off the council. I've met with Fuller many times, and George is descending. He's arrogant, and if you don't like his opinion, you don't matter unless you're on his side. And if you're not on his side, you're just a piece of wheat blowing around in the wheat field. I mean, that's just how he looks at you.
Yeah. How long has he been McKinney mayor?
This is his second term.
Okay.
8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's here to stay. I'm telling everybody, he's here to stay. And there's a lot more to uncover about the Fuller regime that we can get into later, but it goes very deep. It's with anything, and you know this, with anything, politics, school board, council, follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
The money tells you a hell of a story.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's an important point because we can't follow the money because we don't know where the money is going. We don't have the documents. And
that is correct.
And it's literally against the law. And I mean, that seems to be the theme. I mean, it's been this way for a while. People just haven't paid attention. It was, like you said, it was COVID that brought it to light that, wait a minute, how does the government have the right to choose which businesses can stay open and which can close, and why does Walmart get to stay open when, mom and pop grocery store doesn't get to stay open, or mom and pop hardware store? I mean, it's completely arbitrary. There's no compelling interest to it for the government. And people, I think that just caused everybody to be like, wait, what? Our government's not actually following the law. And that just seems to be the trend, but they don't care about the law anymore.
Well, there's only one way to follow it right now since we're not getting answers. But if you look on campaign finance reports, that's the easiest place to find the money. That's the only option we've got right now. And you can find a lot of answers there.
Yeah. What are some, have you observed some interesting things on campaign finance reports that you could share with us?
Well, it's the people that were for vaccines and for, masks and everything else. All you got to do is look at who they took money from during their campaign. It makes it very simple.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a perfect example that, people, it just shocks me how many people in the state just have no clue about who Greg Abbott really is, and that's a whole rabbit trail, but just one discrete example. I mean, and my understanding is that Greg Abbott has gotten a large amount of donations from facilities that do child gender modification or support it, such as UT Southwestern. And then strangely, the child gender modification, the bill that would have banned that, somehow didn't make it through. And I tend to think those two things are connected.
Well, him and Patrick and Phelan all got $25,000 from them last round. There's no telling how much they've got from them this time.
Yeah.
But all that's, and I can share links with people. That's where you find those answers. If you start tracking the money, you can see why Austin and local politics is the way it is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I'm very curious to see what documents they have, and if they don't, then what crimes they're going to be charged with. Of course, then you get into the problem of, I mean, it feels like right now the politicians, they've been at this for a while. We're kind of new at calling them out on it. A lot of us are, myself included, but it's like they've built an impenetrable wall around themselves,
They have.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do anything about it. One example recently, I mean, I watched Seth Keshel's presentation to our organization here. We're starting a new chapter of County Citizens Defending Freedom. And he was talking about how he was going through all the numbers of the primary elections and how the numbers just really don't make sense. And they didn't track with the polls. They didn't track with the voting rolls and what you would expect to see as far as turnout and trends in a primary election. It's very alarming stuff. And so it's basically just like, we can't even vote them out of office. That's supposed to be the remedy, but there's no transparency with these primary elections. So we end up having the same old rhinos running every year. And then you end up with the lesser of two evils. Do I vote for a rhino Republican, an establishment Republican, or do I vote for the Democrat? So, it's, what do you do about that? What can we do?
This is why we need closed primaries. And the only way we win this battle until we get closed primaries is we keep doing exactly what we're doing. We spread the word on social media. Mm-hmm. We spread it at meetings, at gatherings. We have to expose all these crooks.
Absolutely.
And I've exposed a lot of Collin County reps. I'm going to keep exposing them. I don't care how mad they get, but if they're deceiving the people of Collin County, I'm going to call them out, and they need to be called out.
Yeah, I mean that's what we have to do, and yeah, I mean, I was going to share this. If you can't win at the election, or if you can't get election integrity, I mean, what's the last safeguard really is the courts. And, this may shock a lot of people that probably have never heard this before, because everybody is like, well, can we sue them? Can we sue them? Can we sue them? If you're a citizen and you file a lawsuit against the state government or against the local, let's say we wanted to sue the state of Texas for conducting an illegal election. Well, if you're a citizen and try to do that, and you sue in federal court under your constitutional right to a Republican form of government, that is guaranteed in the Constitution. The Supreme Court has said it's a right guaranteed to the people to have elected representation. And if you try to sue and say, hey, Texas is not upholding its end of the deal, there's all these stolen votes. I don't know. I can't see our elections got problems, right? If you try to bring that lawsuit, the court is going to say, well, your claim is something that's common to all citizens. So therefore you don't have the right to bring that claim. And that's actually one thing the court said in the election integrity lawsuit we brought. And I'm just like, if a citizen does not have standing to sue the government for conducting an illegal election, who does? What we're supposed to just let the politicians are going to do it? I mean, that's like, the wolf guarding the hen house. I mean, it's just, what can you do?
It's very discouraging, but Paul, why it's discouraging, it's encouraging at the same time, because I do feel, and I said this at the beginning, I do feel like we are making headway. Mm-hmm. The more that we expose, the more people are waking up, and the more pressure is being put on our local officials. And I saw some of that in Austin, in Houston this past week. I could tell there's some people very nervous because we're fighting back. Mm-hmm. So we have to keep fighting back until we have no fight left.
Yeah, I agree. And we have to be willing to lose it all. Absolutely. I'm a perfect. And if you have that attitude and you trust in God, God will take care of you. Like I'm a perfect example. I didn't hold anything back.
Get through hell and back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I worry about things like it's easy to kind of give into that temptation to fear when like the 65 Project, this group of Democrats, it comes at me trying to take my law license, or I've heard. I don't know if you heard this at the last. I think it was the last school board meeting I went to. This guy named Josh Murray stands up and starts accusing me of running a grifting scheme for my election lawsuit. And it was just completely false. I did not manage that money. I had nothing to do with it. But I do have the records that it went to serving the lawsuit. And, if I was running a grifting scheme, I'd be the worst grifter ever, because I literally went into $20,000 worth of debt and had to sell my house over that lawsuit because I didn't work. I worked for free for 6 months, so it's just like people will accuse you of whatever if you're trying to take a stand, but you just can't let that stop you. You got to keep going.
No, he's a liberal out of Vaughn. He's at every city council meeting. He fought for Shimwell. He fights for Fuller. He's just a liberal that wants to make some noise. Yeah,
well, if he can't back up what he's saying about me, and if he's at the next meeting, we're gonna have some words and be like, oh, you're really that confident about your accusations? Why don't you say it on camera? Because there is such a thing called defamation that you can sue people for. So you can't just go around throwing charges around like that.
Yeah, Joshua Murs, he's also running against Chris Hill. our county judge as well for election.
I heard that.
So that may be a little motive there.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. So, we'll try to wrap up here in the next few minutes, but, what, is there anything else that I haven't asked you just about the construction, these contracts, what's going on that you'd really like to tell the audience? Just any examples, anything just, we hadn't really talked about that's kind of an eye-raising issue.
I think the only thing I didn't bring up is they're also awarding contracts to architects.
Mm-hmm.
And typically your big districts have 2 or 3 architects they work with. Another example of them having funds, they've got an architect on staff, but they can't provide us any paperwork as to what their fee is. And typically architect has a certain fee on every project. If we're doing multiple projects, they'll give you a percentage for that. So it's just another rabbit hole that we're trying to go down to find out what we're actually paying for services and what they're doing, because right now we have no freaking idea what they're doing.
Yeah, man, that's a problem. Let me ask you this: when people point this out at the meetings, I mean, do we ever get an answer as to why there's no documents? I mean, do they have any explanation at all?
There's been no answers at the meetings. All this information that we have obtained has been done through FOIA request.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, you will very seldom ever hear them talk about construction at board meetings.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what I say. They don't give any kind of monthly update or anything about what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a good reason for that. Not a good reason.
Good reason for it.
Yeah.
But here in the next couple of days, I'm going to get you all this information we've talked about, and I'll let you see kind of what we're dealing with.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see that. And then, we'd love to have you back on the show to talk more about Mayor Fuller and kind of what's going on there, because that's very interesting. But man, I had no idea there was just so much corruption and just unanswered questions and closed government going on right here. I mean, it's really disturbing.
Well, that's why McKinney's in such bad shape. We're not only fighting the board, we're fighting the council, and we really need people to start paying attention to what's going on in this city. And it's no different than Frisco. I exposed a swamp in Frisco when I retired. Mm-hmm. There were some people who got their hands slapped, but I can tell you the same thing is going on in Frisco.
Wow, man.
And it's just, it's people not being held accountable, and they've got away with it too long. And now we're fighting a bear that's going to be hard to fight, but we're going to fight it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, because I see the same thing you're seeing with, it seems like they're nervous. They don't really know how to answer. I mean, just my email exchange with the board's attorney last week, I mean, showed me, I mean, I was kind of like, since I'm new to the Open Meetings Act, I'm just like, am I missing something? Like, this just seems so obviously illegal. And that's, I wasn't really trying, like when I first emailed her, I wasn't trying to like ruffle feathers. I mean, I don't exactly like her. She was real mean to me at the first meeting I went to, but, I was just like, hey, help me out here. Like, what is the authority? And I still have not gotten any kind of answer that I know of. So,
well, this should tell everybody what they need to know. When Chad made a motion to take their claim to the district attorney, and they didn't even want to take a second on that, that should tell you what they're hiding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we talked about that on the last episode, but it was a beautiful moment, because it's just
absolutely.
It was just I was laughing so hard, because he's just like, all right, if I really committed a crime, I motioned to refer this to the district attorney, and it was crickets in there. So it's just like they're not willing to put their money where their mouth is, and that's why I think. And I'm go ahead. What were you gonna say?
We're gonna work hard to defeat this corruption.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I mean, I'm gonna try to. I think I'm gonna publish the letter I sent to the board's attorney, because it's brutal, and because I was just tired of it. I was sick of it. I was playing nice. I'm just like, all right, what's your authority? Giving her the benefit of the doubt, and then when she kept stonewalling me and just not giving it to me, I'm like, okay, I'm not playing nice anymore. And I analyzed the whole issue, went through all the case law. This is why you can't do this. And then I ended it with, okay, so you tell me why you have not violated your ethical duty to the board to advise them that they can't go into closed session like this. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am. But I've been a lawyer for 10 years, and I'm fairly good at doing research and analyzing, and I just don't see how they can do the things that they're doing. So we'll see. We'll give an update on the next episode what happens with that, because I'm very interested. Maybe I'll have to report her to the bar. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're trying to think of something. Oh, actually, this is pretty funny. They tried to accuse me of an ethical violation because the last meeting, I made sure, and Chad Green makes sure to object when they go into closed session under, what the rule where you can go into closed session to debate about disciplining somebody. And, so I go up there and take a picture of the document, and then I get this, then they accuse me of like collecting evidence for my other case. And I'm just like, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I was actually up there for Chad Green, and here's the photo I took of the objection that he made. So you can't go into closed session. It's kind of funny. They don't seem to really know what to do now that somebody's actually holding them accountable,
Well, we appreciate what you do. We appreciate what you're doing for Chad. And you got a lot of patience behind you, and we need to keep fighting this fight.
Well, I need, everybody out there listening, y'all got to pray for both of us, because, we come under a lot of attack, and it's just something new every day. To close the episode, what do you have what would you, if I asked you to give a call to action to our listeners, what would you tell people to do to, change this?
We need every patriot out there to start attending council meetings, attend school board meetings, start asking questions. There's no stupid question. There's no dumb question. If you need an answer to something, ask it. Because if we do not hold these people accountable, we're not going to have a county left, and we're not going to have Texas left. We lose Collin County, we're done as a state. This is the second largest reddest county in the freaking country, and if we lose this county, we're in serious trouble.
Amen. That I couldn't have said it better myself. Kyle Sims, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on, and can't wait to see those documents. And I'm sure I'll have some follow-up questions, and we'll bring you back on a future episode. So I really appreciate your time tonight.
Paul, I appreciate you, brother. Stay strong and stay focused.
Absolutely. Stay on backstage so we can debrief for a few minutes, but I'll go ahead and end the broadcast. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.